Coming in with the coastline. Holy Toledo. Look at that surf. Can't beat that. Doggone it, Bill. I can't believe that. You couldn't find him, huh, Bill?
No, I looked and looked, and I got, you told me you sent him before too, and I just can't find him. I don't know. I don't know
I
what's going
don't
on.
understand. I'm writing myself a note again right here. I don't understand. Um, I'll send him again from my personal email address.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Which,
and just if
which
you send
I
me a text when you send them, I'll be hunting for them.
you'll be hunting?
No, I'll be looking for those leads. I'll immediately check for them and follow up and
Okay, yeah,
get to.
that sounds good. Good God,
Okay, thank
thought you were going hunting. I was going like, where are we going?
you. Wrong time of year for that, Brett. But hey, that's great.
Oh, there's always something to hunt.
That is true.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Um,
This.
so look, a couple of you have noticed that there's a new website. I went live with a link this morning, but it's not fully functional yet. So just keep using the website you've been using. Don't do anything freaky. But Darius and I will have that website up and running this week.
Okay.
Um,
Well, okay then.
you got that person, Darius, that's making
Yep.
the noise?
Got him. There we go.
Okay. So look, I was thinking about something over the weekend. I found myself involved in numerous layers. When I got cancer, I found myself slipping away in like stair steps, going downward or layers. And over the weekend, I was lifting weights and I found myself in an environment where I was much stronger than I was a week ago, much stronger than I was 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago. In fact, interestingly enough, I'm somebody that's been in the weight room for many, many years, as a lot of you know, but I've never been as weak as I was after cancer was over, other than in 1982 when I spent a year in a wheelchair from my car wreck. And what's interesting about it is it's very similar to marketing, where so many times I hear people say to me, well, I've got to start over. And I actually don't know where this came from, but I've never ever looked at my life and said, I've got to start over. I've always embraced it like I've got to start from here, or I'm going to start from here. Like more like an opportunity as opposed to a demand or a command. Now, I make it very clear from my perspective anyway that I don't believe there's too many of us that can just step into advertising and marketing and all of a sudden do it 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I am thoroughly convinced that the way to do it is to spoon feed yourself a little bit each day. And then what will happen is, I guess it's kind of like a religious moment in a way. If it's the truth, then, and you really want to be part of it, then you'll follow that path. Oftentimes you hear these religious leaders or these disciples that'll say, well, read it, and if it's the truth, then you should be part of it. And it's like, okay. But when it comes to marketing and advertising, it really is not for everybody. It's not. I mean, it's very simple to look at it from the outside and say, my God, this sounds great. I want to be part of it, whatever it is. But then the work begins. Now, the most difficult thing that I've found over the years with people is very similar to what I found in the late 80s when I was brought into an assignment of helping my soon-to-be in-laws turn their company around, which was in vital shape. It was at the point of death. And there was a lot of, anytime you're ever part of that chaos in your home or in a business, you know, in a school system, an organization of some sort, the number one thing you got to do is you've got to be patient, you know, and impatience seems to be prevail. And it seems like human beings can go into survival mode prematurely. And when it comes to marketing, advertising, you know, societal issues, you know, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we're starting to be classically conditioned, you know, that we be quick to act. But so often what I find with people is we're quick to act, but then it is like a fart where afterwards there's no smell anymore. There's nothing tangible for you to hang on to. And that's why so frequently you'll see people out there going from one medium to another. You know, people that used to scare the hell out of me the worst were the people who were drinking and doing drugs and living that lifestyle. And all of a sudden one day, just boom, they found Jesus Christ. And now their entire world is about Jesus Christ. Or boom, they found Dodge. Or boom, they found Chevy. Or boom, they found Ford. You know, those type of people really scare me. Because more often than not, what I find with these people is they do have this tendency to be always looking, never finding. And they're not good at commitments. What they're really good at is getting started, but not enduring what it takes to be able to finish. You know, so I wanted to talk about those fundamentals. And my greatest example for this is to understand that there's times where, metaphorically speaking, it's not a good idea for you and I to be involved in heavy lifting. You know, I've used my analogy a number of times now regarding endurance versus enduring. You know, and that's what I found myself doing over the weekend. Was there I was doing bench press, and I just stopped for a moment and thought about what I had just done and how I asked my body to do some additional reps. So instead of doing a lot of weight, I'm doing real high reps. And I wanted to do 40 reps of this certain weight. And when I got to 40 reps, I heard a quote by Ali. And the quote was, as I paraphrase here, surrounding, it's not how many push-ups I did, but it's how many I did once I started hurting. And that's a thing I could tell you that again and again and again in my life regarding marketing and advertising is each time I started in like Smith Barney or the mortgage industry or this industry, I was willing to take myself out of my comfort zone to put myself into an uncomfortable environment. Very similar to what I did over the weekend with the weights, where it was like, okay, listen, the only way you're going to increase the amount of reps and increase the amount of weight is you're going to have to go a little further. And this is just so ingrained in me, instilled in me, that I just do it naturally. It's there. I come up upon that crossroad and then I do it. And then I always walk away saying to myself, man, I'm proud of you. That was a great lift. Or man, I'm proud of you. That was a great hour or day of advertising or marketing. You know, I think so often now more than ever in our country, our ability to be able to cop out, to be able to quit prematurely is there for all of us, but the permission is there more than it's ever been, because we live in a world with options where you, when you look back at your parents or my parents or their parents before them or their parents before them, I mean, let's understand one another. We all know this in the back of our minds. Many people poured out of Portugal, poured out of Ireland, poured out of Switzerland, poured out of Norway, poured out of Germany, they're pouring out of Mexico, they're pouring out of, Guatemala and Saudi Arabia, and they're coming to this country. And it's been going on for generations. And more often than not, these people have, short of a rucksack on their back or a bag that they used to carry, now we carry backpacks, as long as they don't have George Soros backing them and they're showing up in brand new Nikes and brand new Levi's and a brand new t-shirt, and you're wondering where the hell's their luggage. I mean, I looked at it, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of those people arriving in America. I'm like, where's their luggage, for Christ's sake? Where's their bag? I mean, I know I've been hiking and hunting and fishing for so many years that I can't imagine showing up to your house, Jeff Graw, and I'm going to stay for a week without some luggage, right?
Right.
We had millions of people coming across the border. They didn't so much as have a handbag, But, what's interesting is I'm reading a book right now for about the umpteen millionth time by Stephen King called On Writing. And he's talking about the toolkit that you need to be a writer. I mean, who would ever think of such a thing? But I remember long before I ever read that book, sitting in my Monday morning meetings in the mortgage industry, sitting in my Monday morning meetings in the stock brokerage industry, sitting in my Monday morning meetings early in these meetings, in the years of these meetings, and saying to people again and again, we have tools. No different than an electrician has, black electrical tape. They would never use, freezer tape that a meat cutter uses. My God, if you use freezer tape that a meat cutter uses, you'd end up getting electrocuted. So each one of these professions has certain tools. And if you're going half cocked into this and you don't have those tools to include the endurance it takes to be able to get the job done, you're going to have half-ass results at best. And that can be really difficult on you and I. Pretty soon what happens to us is that fight or flight mechanism kicks in. Now, for me, a great example, I'd like to bring up these examples. I don't want to do this to appear as though as though I'm bragging or saying I, like an autobiography, but it's just use it loosely for content or context. When I first came out of cancer, my wife uses these 5-pound rubber weights on the treadmill, and she walks with them. She dangles with them, and then she'll do them overhead. And since I've known her, I purchased a treadmill 6 months before I met her. She's been running a marathon a day and never missed, ever, not once, even during COVID-19. And she's worn out 3 treadmills doing this. So there were these 5-pound rubber weights in our front room one night. I don't know, let's say a year ago. And she was behind me knitting in her gliding chair that she sits in. She's the type that fidgets, and so she's moving all the time. And I'm laying on the floor, and I'm watching TV with the dogs, and I roll over and I get these 5-pound weights. And at the time, I look more like a turtle than I do now. I mean, I had 0 neck muscles. I had 0 pecs. 0 pecs. And 0 delts. And my lats were gone, and my biceps were gone, and my triceps were gone. But I knew, having been involved in exercising long enough, that I could wake them up again. I could go find them. The question is, where were they? And it's a lot like this book written by Stephen King called On Writing, where he talks about you and I as writers when we're writing something, and how in a lot of ways we're on an archaeological dig. And if you think about an archaeological dig, sometimes you may use a tractor. Sometimes you may use a shovel for an archaeological dig, but sometimes you're using a tool as fine as a set of, I don't know, tweezers. You know, look at the difference between a tweezer and a bulldozer. And so the right tool for the right job, preparation being the key. So for me, I had the weights, I had the time, I had the mindset, and there was embers inside my belly that were saying, you know, how can I do here? Because I was so weak, honestly, folks. Just to go out to get the mail was a chore. Those of you that have had some of these bad cancers, you know what I'm talking about. Chemo and radiation could just wipe you out. But what's interesting is, mentally, I was as strong as I'd ever been. So I said to I made a cognizant effort. I said to myself, the only way that you're ever going to get your muscles back is not by starting out with heavy weights. You're going to have to start out with light weights and do high reps. What I always wanted to do, but I had never done, I was always a heavyweight guy when I lifted weights. So there I was in the front room, excuse me. And somewhere like my 20th rep of these 5-pound weights in a bench press form, just laying on the ground on the carpet with my head against the carpet and my legs, my wife made the comment. She said, "This isn't doing you any good. You can lift way more than that." And I remember thinking to myself, I have no business lifting more than this right now. In essence, I've got to walk before I can run. I've got to endure before I have endurance. Well, interestingly enough, my jump to 10-pound weights was exponential. I had to come back to the 5-pound weights to do my 75 to 100 reps. So it was about a month later in a journal, I wrote that today I'm going to go down and buy 10-pound weights. I didn't even own 10-pound weights. They were so light. But I went down and bought them, came home that night, and I did 75 to 100 reps of 10-pound weights. Now, I could tell each of you this. I bet you I stayed there for at least 5 or 6 months. Last night, laying there, I progressed to 45-pound weights, 90 pounds total. You go in a gym and you watch these men and women on an Olympic bar with Olympic weights. The bar weighs 45 pounds. I'm only lifting 90 pounds. I mean, when I started lifting weights, I remember being 12 years old, lifting 100 pounds on the bench press 15 times. And here I am, 64 years old, lifting 90 pounds 75 times. And I got done last night, and my wife made the comment to me. She said, "Look at where you've come from." And I visualized myself saying to myself internally, "And look at where I'll be next year." Now, a year is a hell of a long time. That's 365 days, and I'm only working that body part every 4 days. But that doesn't mean that I'm not working a body part in between. In fact, I choose a body part each day, and I do high reps on that. And in each area, respectively, I'm gaining exponentially. But what's interesting is last night was the first time that mentally I combined my mental strength with my physical strength, and I could feel the two, synonymous or connected with one another for the first time. And I could tell you all, this is very similar to these little stories I tell, like Craigslist, when I tell you on day 2 of 4 in the recording that it took us over 7 months to get Craigslist to work. I mean, I rarely meet people who are willing to work at Craigslist for 7 months, and you've got the formula. The ones who do just crush it. But most people do Craigslist once or twice or for a week, and then they're done. The same with bank loan turndowns, the same with black envelope, the same with going door to door, the same with telemarketing. And I would say that it has a lot to do with the fact that we have unrealistic expectations. So a great example, a year ago, had I taken these 45-pound weights I used last night for bench press and attempted those weights, I might have been able to get in 1 rep, maybe 2 reps, maybe 3. I don't know. But more importantly, what I was worried about was injuring myself and living in and being involved in another setback, because setbacks are the worst for me. So what I came to realize at a young age is 2 things. One, I will never take on anything that can cause a setback in my life, which means I need to start off very, very small in my goal. And two, I want to be in a situation where I build on that with the eventual goal of being in complete control of it and excited about returning to it, as opposed to saying that was fucked. My fight or flight mechanism kicked in, and every time I go to do it again, my fight or flight mechanism kicks in, and I choose to bow out. And I can tell you, folks, that I am convinced that that is a difference between achieving what you want to achieve and not achieving what you want to achieve, which is what is described as a win from my perspective, where you put together this list, you know, and categorically, I've got my list outlined here. I've got exercise here. I've got eating here. I've got religion here. I've got writing here. I've got podcasts here. I've got marketing here. And then I've got my everyday items, which are my personal items. Realizing that the only time I ever work on my personal items during the day is when I need a break from my business items. But this morning I wrote a note up here at the top. If you could see it, what it says is, this is your life, Brett. It is an art project. What will it look like when you're done? Now, I could tell you all, I've had a really big life that has involved a tremendous amount of setbacks. And again and again and again, I've had to deal with mental setbacks, physical setbacks, emotional setbacks, no different than you. But one of the things that I do that very few people do that I've met is I refuse to be in a situation where I stop everything due to a setback. In fact, I ran into a unique position for Darius the other day. And Darius was probably, you know, not aware of the magnitude of what was going on. But him and I were on the phone with a guy. I want to say the guy's name was Eli or Neil. I'm terrible at that shit. Darius knows that. With Authorize.net setting up our credit card processing. And again and again and again for probably, I would say, a solid 15 minutes, Darius.
Oh, yeah.
He was giving me instructions and I could not get it to work. You were giving me instructions and I could not get it to work. Agreed?
Yeah.
And what did I do?
You deferred to me.
I handed it off to you.
Mhm.
Jeff, you laugh. Let me tell you where I got this. Let me tell you how I got this, because I was not born into that mindset. Our family mindset was, if I can't do it, no one else can. Or if I can't do it, I'm not going to admit that I'm weak. So that means I'm just not going to be able to do it. Right? And in my mind, I justify it and I say, this can't be done. That's bullshit. So 1984, I buy my first home from my folks. And about a month later, I'm introduced to a guy by the name of Warren Buffett in person. And one of the things that Warren Buffett said during this meeting before I was introduced to him was, I realize the things I'm not capable of doing, and I hand those things off to others to do them, and it makes my position stronger. And I never consider it a weakness. In fact, I consider it a strength that I realize that I'm incapable of doing this. Now, let's talk about incapabilities. Darius, you know I'm a talented guy just like you in my respective areas.
For sure.
You know in your heart of hearts that I could have stuck with it and done it, right?
Right.
But what started to transpire was I started to get frustrated, didn't I?
Yes.
Now, that is a natural precursor to what we call the fight or flight response, right? And I opted not to fight. I opted to flight because I knew that if I stepped away and came back to it an hour or two ago later or a day later, I'd probably slip right in and it would be no issue. But I also knew that this was your area. And I've come to realize that in our partnership, it went over to you. And lo and behold, if voila, less than an hour later, you're sending me an email, then and you had been done for some time with him and you were done. It was over. Not once, Darius, did I ever feel like I was a subordinate, inferior to you at all. In fact, I even told you a week or two ago that this doesn't bother me. I've had 10,000 Dariuses help me throughout my life. 100,000 Dariuses helped me throughout my life. And I got to tell each of you this. We remain ignorant, unschooled, uneducated, unlearned, but more importantly, unaccomplished. And if you look at the word ignorant, it doesn't have that word as a synonym. But I can tell you right now, if you remain ignorant, unschooled, untaught, unlearned, you will be unaccomplished. If there is such a word. You will not be accomplished in that area. And there's an old saying, ignorance is bliss. It is. It is. I agree 100%. And I think that the saying should be broke down and we should understand that ignorance, when you're not paying attention, is just fine. But I mean, Jeff, if you and I are going to hang a door in your bedroom to the entrance of your bedroom, and we're trying to shim that son of a bitch up and put the molding on, and we can't get that damn thing, and neither of us know how to do it. We have so many options nowadays. All we got to do is go online and type in YouTube, how do I shim a door? How do I even up a door? You know, you could type it in 100 different ways, and you're going to find some old lady, some old guy, some middle-aged lady or guy, some young guy or lady, hell, some young man or some young girl, and they're going to show you and I how to shim the door, are they not?
Yes, they are.
So why would we remain ignorant? Well, let me tell you. I've chosen over the years to remain ignorant due to laziness more than anything. I've chosen not to advance in the direction I want to go due to laziness more than anything. Now, laziness cannot be misconstrued. You've got to understand that you and I are involved in timing. You got to go back to the day you were born. You got to go back to the day you were conceived. And you got to understand that timing is everything. You know, what are they telling Darius right now? His wife is expecting a baby soon. They're telling Darius when it all starts out, he's got to wait 9 months. Right, Darius?
That's right.
And I told you, dude, that was one of the most fucked up periods of my life, waiting 9 months. Because if you said to me right now, hey, Brett, what are you up to? Well, you know what, Darius? I went down to Miller Paint. I got some gutter paint and, you know, for metal. And I got my primer and I got my brushes. I got my rollers. I got my tape. I got my drop cloths. And this afternoon, I'm going to paint my gutters. Bro, I could take a room and in 3 or 4 hours, I can convert it into something so simple, it is unimaginable, that is different than what it was when I started. But the one thing I've been involved in my life that I could not get to go faster was Grant and Travis's birth. And it drove me insane. And so I started to learn about control and a lack of control and why you and I feel we need control. And it was so interesting when they talk about the term reverse engineering. The best example of this is, let's say, Jeff, you and I come across, you know, a UFO, this enclosed saucer-like environment piece laying out in the desert, and we bring it home to the garage. It's, you know, 12 foot wide by 5 foot tall. And we start to look for screws and nuts and buttons and how the hell do we get inside the damn thing, you know? But eventually we figure out how to do it. Your best engineers in the world, what they will do is they will take what is currently existing and they will figure out how it works. And then of all things on the face of the planet, like 3M did with the Post-it note, as a sheer accident, next thing you know, they've got this accident. What did they do? They didn't stop there. They made billions of dollars off those Post-it notes over the years, you know? And you and I know different. I mean, that's why that saying exists. When life gives you lemons, why not make lemonade? So next month in Chicago, I'm going to be at an event where I will be not only the master of the ceremony, but I will be giving the final speech on cancer for this particular weekend. And this is for surviving cancer patients. And the interesting thing in preparing for this speech again and again and again and again, because I don't want to be underprepared, because they're paying me $75,000 to come and be part of this. I've been asked to be part of this because I'm part of a program over here every 2 weeks where we go to a Cancer Anonymous meeting. And again and again and again, Asante has said to me, there's something that you do that others don't do. And we don't know what it is, but we're going to start to pay you to come back. Well, the difference between me and the people in there is I have absolutely no problem telling you that my bottom teeth are turning black at the roots. I have no problem telling you that 5 weeks in, I lost complete control of my bowel movements and had to live in a diaper for the next 13 months, where farts were no longer farts. They were now loose, and I was going to be crapping my pants. And I can tell you, the crowd oftentimes laughs. But at the same time, what the crowd understands is that what they're going through is not original. We are all going through it. We're just not talking about it. So a great example of this is about a week ago on Instagram, I met a guy. Like we all meet these people on these platforms. I didn't actually meet in person, but I've come to know him really well because I'm following the hell out of him. And I could tell you all, he got to the point where he was almost 600 pounds. And he is only 5'11". Wouldn't you know it, I can't find him. Anyway, long story short, he's at the point right now where 2 years later is all it took. He's down to 190 pounds. He could do 40 pull-ups.
Holy
He
moly.
could do 1,000 push-ups. He just ran a marathon. But I got to tell you, all these accomplishments, and he takes off his shirt, and you can only imagine what his boobs look like, what his belly looks like, all that skin. In fact, when he runs the marathon, he has to use ACE bandages to keep that skin from going up and down and back and forth, sideways, horizontally, vertically, because the vibration and the movement of that skin was causing so much chafing that he'd end up having to get out of the race. But that didn't stop him. Now he's preparing to have all that loose skin removed. And you look at it and you say to yourself, you know, if any of you know about having this skin removed, this is not an easy procedure. It is, by the way, very life-threatening. He's going to have drain tubes throughout his entire body. And like many people, he's doing his entire body, upper body at once. And he was taking questions the other day from all of us. And I asked him a question like everybody else, and he gave me an answer, and he's given everybody an answer. But what's interesting is his thought on it is, I've come this far. I want to have that immediate result. And I thought to myself, you know, if it were me, I'm convinced that if I had all that skin hanging off of me, I would do it a little bit at a time rather than endangering myself and doing it all at once. Only because he's come so far. And one of the worst things that could happen right now would be a setback. Well, to each his or her own. We all have choices on how we're going to respond. But more importantly, for me, the bigger picture is this guy who's taking these 3-foot cube boxes, 36 inches. I mean, I'm 64. I had a 47-inch vertical jump reach when I graduated from high school and started playing college basketball and could jam the ball at 5'11". Do 360s at 5'11". Folks, if I even tried to jump right now, I'd probably tear an Achilles heel or a hamstring or a calf muscle. I'd be afraid to try and jump right now. But this guy has conditioned himself, having lost all this weight, this entire time. He was doing boxes like they do in these classes, like CrossFit and so on. And what he showed, you would not believe it, was some of you have seen these blocks that they use in yoga. They're about 4 inches thick. They're about, I'd say 9 to 12 inches long. They're about 6 inches wide, and they're little foam cheater boxes, for lack of a better word, that we use, blocks that we use when I was a hatha yoga instructor, when I first started to cheat. And it's a 4-inch block, and that's what he was using for blocks initially. And then he showed the progression of the blocks, like sets of stairs, to where he's now got a vertical jump reach on 1 foot of 36 inches. They think that he's carrying 60 to 80 pounds of skin that needs to come off of his body. And when he does this, he has his shirt off. So that skin goes up and down, and then it jiggles. And it's just simply unimaginable when you look at his body, where he was and where he is now. And then now his dream is to get this skin off of him and not stare at that. But what's interesting is there's not a bone in his body that appears to be embarrassed whatsoever by looking the way he does. And I can tell you, folks, that's one of the things that happened to me at an early age that people did not like. And that is, I'm not embarrassed about what I say or by what I say, and I'm not embarrassed by how I look. I cannot imagine living in a world where I was embarrassed at how I look. But I am surrounded every day by people that are that superficial, that it creates an environment where they won't go out marketing, where they won't get in video. My own wife is one of these people. No matter what, I cannot get her to get in video. And she is by far and away as good, if not better, than any yoga instructor I've ever seen in my life. I would put her right up there against Rodney Yee, anyone in the world, Patricia Walden. But more importantly, Jane is symmetrical and as beautiful as any human being, any architecture, any vehicle design you've ever seen. But there's a thing inside her brain that says, I'm not worthy. So again and 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 again, I've been there. Every time I've experienced not the words, but the actions of Jane Frances Tobin saying, metaphorically, I'm not worthy. And what is happening to my wife right now? For the first time ever, there's a level of confidence there that's never been there before. And I never thought for one moment that it would take this long. At every crossroad that we arrived at together, when I felt her saying in her words or her actions, I'm not worthy, or she was shame-based or guilt-laden, I was right there with some sort of a message that was just a minor message that was like, you look great, honey. Your hair looks great today. Or, boy, you look wonderful. You look really fit today, or that's a pretty outfit. Positive affirmations. And the reason I did this with Jane, and Darius, how many times have I done it with you?
All of you.
I am forever telling you how handsome you are, how beautiful your smile is, how gifted you are. Or am I not?
Right? Yeah.
And what did I tell you when I first met you? You're either going to get dumber or smarter as I get to know you, right?
True.
I spend time with people who are looking to improve the quality of their lives and have been involved in improving the quality of their lives or attempting to improve the quality of their lives. I get off on that because I could tell you right now, I don't know where I would have been without Mr. Grimes or Mr. Kleiner or Mr. Cowan or Mr. Hermo or my father. Very few people. I just named off 5, or Bud Rohl, 6 people at Milwaukee Lutheran Church, our pastor, before he passed away. You and I know there's really only 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 people in our lives that have been unimaginably instrumental in our lives. That's why I remember Mrs. Fox from the 4th grade or Mrs. Sherritt from the 6th grade. These people who, when I was at a crossroad and I felt like I was unworthy or I was shame-based or guilt-laden or nervous, that were standing there saying, you can do this, or, you know, I like your shoes. Something so subtle, so simple, yet interestingly enough, we don't use it with our children. We don't use it with our wife. We don't use it with our husbands. We don't use it with our partners. We spend more time, they say nowadays, complimenting our damn dogs and cats and birds and fish and snakes. And it has so much to do with the fact that we are in such a competitive world that at the end of the day, how can I give to you if my tank is not full? How can I give to you if I don't have anything in my tank? Well, I can tell you, folks, the real formula here is this. You have to give to get. And that doesn't involve a tank. That doesn't involve a wallet. That doesn't involve a purse. That doesn't involve a bottle of water or, you know, a box of liquid food. You've been given a gift. I've been given a gift. We were given this gift at birth. Each and every one of us has the ability to give. But I can tell you right now, if you're involved in the survival mode where you're looking to get, I mean, the best way to describe this is you're floundering in the middle of a deep, dark ocean and there's no one around and you're looking at me and I got a life jacket and a life raft and I've got a life ring and you're, every time you come up for air, you're like, throw it to me. You know, I can tell you right now, if you've got your mind in that position, if you've got your body in that position, how in the fuck can you get on the phone and make phone calls and talk about merchant cash advances with the business owner? How in the fuck can you get on Craigslist and help people with their financial issues with the merchant cash advance? How can you do it door to door? How can you help bankers with bank loan turndowns? You can't. You can't. And if you're so engulfed in that survival environment, I'm homeless, I'm broke, I'm going to get kicked out, I'm this. I mean, they actually say that two of the most important words in your life, in my life, are I am and what follows next. And so often we wake up in the morning and we just become exactly what we were yesterday without even thinking of it. Like it's our responsibility, it's our duty to serve those two words and what follows. I am tired. I am broke. I am scared. I am sick. I am hurt. I am aching. I am scared to make calls. I am out of money and my phone doesn't work. I am no longer the owner of a computer. It got stolen. I mean, you could put in so many, nouns and verbs after the word I am that it is unimaginable. I could tell you all that when I first started programming my brain, not reprogramming it, but programming it with a new way of thinking, a new way of talking to myself. 3M had just come out with the little 3x3 Post-it note. And I had just got done learning about positive affirmations. And I had them everywhere. In fact, if you would have filmed it, it would have been like the movie 23 with Jim Carrey. You would have thought when you came into my home or got into my office or came into one of my vehicles or went into my gym in the garage or went into my shed in the tool shed or down into the woods into my little cabin I built in the woods in inner city Portland, you would have said to yourself, if you were like a serial killer hunter, a police officer, an FBI agent, you would have said, we found him. We found her. This is the one. I had so many Post-it notes posted with little one-sentence messages. I feel great. I am happy. I am healthy. I am excited. I am honest. I am strong. I am willing. And then what I did when I would pick up that, great example. Everybody take a look at them. You seen these before?
Yep.
One? Have you ever seen 171 of them?
No.
In the store.
I have
In the store.
171 of them. I have 171 of them. Ask me why.
Why?
Because the dipshit who built them so that they're too wide,
Mhm.
or built them so that they're too firm. And it took me years to find the ones that worked when I was not physically strong enough to be able to work them, or I was too strong and they were too easy, or they didn't fit in my hands. So friends and family have been on the lookout for these. And again and again and again, I've gotten them for Father's Day. I've gotten them for birthdays, you name it. But again and again and again, I'm working on my grip. Because what I found once I hit 40, 41, 42 years old, was my grip was starting to go. Once I hit 50, my grip was going faster. Once I hit 64 years ago, my grip was going faster. And I bared down. You know, I can tell you all, we have these tools. We have these tools. Just look at this on my desk. I told Darius the other day, I don't go anywhere without this weighted jump rope. I could be in a hotel and get in my 10 minutes, my 30 minutes. I could be in a hotel parking lot before I get in the car. I was in a hotel parking lot 2 weeks ago in Portland, and a guy walked by and looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I don't care. I don't care. I carry this satchel, and inside of it, I've got my jump rope. Now, what else do I have in there? I've got this. It's part of my team. It's part of my tools. On top of it, what else do I carry in there? I've always got one of these because when I'm driving, it's sitting on the dash and I'm using it throughout. I always carry a spare pair of reading glasses, at least, if not 2 or 3, because as you know, it doesn't matter what you pay for them, they get lost. What is my point? Folks, I meet so many people that are not prepared for the day. They're not prepared for the week. They're not prepared for their life. Interestingly enough, think back on those times when you were firing on all 8 cylinders and you were prepared. You're dating that guy, you're dating that gal, you're dating that partner. You know, you're painting that room. You're welding up that hitch, that bumper. You know, you're mowing the lawn and you're like, you're in your universe. You're knitting that shawl. You're putting together a scarf. You're crocheting those doilies. You know, whatever it is. Every one of us has these skill sets. But that doesn't mean that every one of us is capable of doing what it is we intend to do. Which means on occasion, you're going to have to reach out to a Darius and say, I need your help. I literally said to Darius on the phone call and to the other gentleman from Authorize.net, I'm out. I'm out. I didn't apologize at all. I don't owe you an apology, Darius. As far as I'm concerned, we wouldn't be where we're at had it not been for you. And believe me, you and me, dude, you know for a fact, I would have never taken on credit card processing again, being so we've been with over 100 to 200 companies, and eventually we get shut down because they just don't like our business model. They can't stand it. You know, they want us to be a standard everyday restaurant. They understand those. They want us to be a standard everyday heating and air conditioning company. You know the thing about this industry, folks? We are superior. We are the top dog. Southern Oregon Air Conditioning was at my mom's house on Friday, midday. And the guy's going on and on about, well, you know, they don't make that R22 Freon anymore, and her unit's been limping along. I've been saying that for years. And so we're talking for a little bit. And I said to him, I said, well, let my mom and I think about it. It's this, the air conditioning unit's still working. And I said, is that your best price? And he said, yeah, it is. He goes, to be honest with you, I've been working this year at upping my margins and being willing to walk away. Listen to that for a moment. I've been working on upping my margins, which means making more money in his pocket, and being willing to walk away in the event that the customer doesn't take it. And I said, yeah, why is that? He said, because I found myself after 26 years thinking I was going to make it up in volume, and it just didn't work. And I'm having financial difficulty. I said, funny you should say that. Did you see my truck outside? No, I didn't. Well, I had showed up late. They had already began. So I pushed the garage door, and the next thing you know, I'm handing out a lead for merchant cash advance. You realize how many heating and air conditioning companies there are in America? You realize how many heating and air conditioning companies there are in your city? And you realize that right now it's June 22nd. And what you need to know is we have never had a heating and air conditioning company handed in for a merchant cash advance ever in the last 27 months, 9 days, over 2 years. And you say to me, well, I don't know where to go. Get to Grant. Send Grant's division your flyers. Thank you, honey. And ask, now that's an amazing person there, bringing me my tea. Thank you very much, baby. I love you. And have Grant make you up a heating and air conditioning flyer. Because understand right now, folks, we're in an environment right now where cash flow is big. You live in Florida. You live in that sweltering heat in Arizona. You live in that humidity in Louisiana. You live in the heat I live in, and that air conditioning unit goes down. By God, we need them, and we need them now. Okay? And why wouldn't you contact this market? But why wouldn't you contact them in the dead of winter? And let me tell you something about this guy as him and I got to talking. Because he noticed my jet skis and he noticed my quads. And he starts to tell me about his quads and his jet skis and his trailer that he had custom built. And he gets all done, Darius, and he reminds me of Thomas. Right? You're nodding. More month than he's got money, but he's got all the toys, baby. And I told him, you're going to fuck around. And the one thing that has been your constant lighthouse is this business. And all you've done is rape and pillage and burn it down. Folks, we rape and pillage and burn our bodies down every day. We eat like shit. We don't exercise. We intend to. We don't read. The materials we do read oftentimes create angst or an unsettled mind that is not fertile, cultivated, full of nutrients. You know, and again and again and again, I'll be with a family member like my oldest son this weekend when I went on the phone and he made the comment to me, what book are you reading? And I gave him the title and he started laughing. He goes, this is what I'm reading. And I think to myself, I'm like, folks, I could go back 30 years, just 30 years. Come on, we're only talking about, what, 1998? I think my math is right. 26, 20, 28, no, 1996. And I could have asked you, Darius, what book are you reading? Or you, Jeff, what book are you reading now? Or RJ, what book are you reading? Or Bill, what book are you reading? Everyone was reading. We ain't reading anymore. Wanna know what we're reading? We're reading these small little things on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and they say things like, you know, Trump did it again. Biden did it again. Kamala Harris did it again. You know, we just, you know, Omar did it again, you know, constantly. And because we're for Omar, or because we're against Omar, or because we're, you know, for the Jews or against the Jews, or because we're, you know, for Trump or against Trump, or for Biden or against Biden, or because we're for Democrats or against Democrats, or because we're for Republicans or against Republicans, it fits our narrative. We fill in the spot, and we don't even have to read anything else. We just know that's that fucking Trump, or that's that fucking Biden, or that's that fucking Omar, or that's that fucking AOC, or that's that fucking McConnell, or that's that fucking Pelosi, or that's, you know, that's that fucking, you know, Pete Rose. God damn it. You know, he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. He cheated. He gambled. You know, I got to tell you, folks, there's times where I'm on the phone with people and I think to myself, I'm like, how in the hell does this person get anything done? Honest to God. So today, if you get a chance, prepare your wife, your husband, your partner, your dogs, your cat, your significant other, that they're sleeping on the other side of the bed tonight. Get in a fight. Get them out of their comfort zone and explain to them, I want to sleep on the other side. Put yourself into that discomfort. Put yourself into that discomfort. And tomorrow, when you wake up, metaphorically speaking, your wheelbarrow will not be sitting in a rut. Because it's sitting in a rut right now on the side of bed that you get in and out of. And all we do is we just progressively fill that wheelbarrow up and push it along all day long. There's something really liberating about looking at life from a different angle and understanding that at the end of the day, the only way that you're going to get what you want in this industry is you're going to have to give. And if you're in a position where you can't give your time because of finances, your location, lack of phone, computer, whatever, then what you need to do is you need to get with someone who has a place for you to stay, who has a phone you can borrow, who has food you can eat for the time being, who has the capabilities of allowing you on a computer. Or maybe you go down to the library and use those computers. You know, I had to laugh about 2008, my oldest son, my computer had gotten ran over. Someone had backed over it. Had fallen off the back of the bumper, someone ran over it. And I was in a position where the company was growing really hard. You know, laptops were not cheap back then. I'd paid $3,500 for it. And my son made the comment, where are you heading? I said, I'm headed to the library. He goes, what the hell for? I go, well, I need to use a computer and I've got to do some work today on the computer. And he's like, Dad, for Christ's sake, go buy a computer. Like, well, I have all my money in syndicating deals. I don't have liquid cash on me right now for another couple days. I ordered money from Smith Barney, and I'm just going to go make do right now. And he's just looking at me and go, you know, son, you better understand something. I worked with a shrink from the time I was 17 and a half years old on what him and I call a means to an end. And I can tell you all something right now. I meet very few people that look at the things that they have to do as a means to an end. Instead, what I get again and again, more physiologically and emotionally, not in their verbiage, is I'm stuck here and I'm fucked forever. Like, what? I mean, shit, folks. Writer's block is writer's block. But nobody has writer's block forever. Get out a piece of paper. Get an ink pen or a pencil. Hell, for Christ's sake, grab a Sharpie. I don't care if it's a blue highlighter or yellow. And write down, Jeff Graw, you're going to do this next. Or Brett Martin, you're going to do this next. Step number 2, Brett Martin, you're going to do this next. Step number 3, Brett Martin, you're going to do this next. You know what I developed? An acronym. I was telling my mom about it yesterday on Father's Day. It's been probably 35 years or more. What I call my WIN acronym abbreviation. What's important now? I take credit for it because I'd never seen it before. Maybe you've seen it before. It could have come from me. I don't know. We seem to emulate, some of us copy, mimic others. Maybe I got it from somebody else. I'm really not that original. But what I did realize was that I was working on shit that didn't matter at all today. I was working on shit that didn't matter at all this week. I was working on shit that didn't matter at all this month. It didn't matter at all this year. That's when I started to notice there's really 3 types of success in my life. Short-term immediate goals, which is what's important now. Short-term goals, then there's medium goals, and then there's long-term goals. I found myself again and again and again with a list of things to do. And inside that list was things that were unachievable that day. Well, folks, when you repeatedly write down or have in the back of your mind things you need to do today that you can't get done, eventually you're going to feel defeated. You're going to feel like a loser. You're going to feel unaccomplished. What you have to do in order to come out of being in cancer and having been so beat up like I was you have to start with next to nothing. With next to nothing. In order to later get something out of it. But so few of us want to start with next to nothing. So few of us, want that car in a driveway, want the house to go along with the driveway and the car, want all the food in the closet, want all the money in the wallet. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've heard people say to me, well, once I get money, I'll do that. Like, bullshit, you will. I can tell you right now, if you can't save money making $5,000 a year, you will not be able to save money making $5 million a year or $500 million a year or $5 billion a year. You mark my words. You better have these principles in place prior. So what do they tell you? You got to pay yourself first. So you find a dime on the ground and you say to yourself, hey, I'm going to keep 30% of that dime and the other 70%, I'm going to spend it. So that one day you wake up and you realize that some of the parts make the whole. It's 2 years later and you're sitting on $1,900. Doesn't sound like much, but 20 years down the road, you're sitting on $19,000. And maybe, just maybe, you've elevated your position and you're sitting on $190,000 or $590,000 because you put these principles in place. Now, I can tell you all, most people arrive on this platform having had a big life. But what's interesting is when I get to talking to them, oftentimes their pride is in the way. And what do they say about pride? What happens? It cometh before what?
What?
Pride cometh before the what?
Fall.
Oh,
The fall. And I can tell you right now, I've learned this about people that are homeless and down and out. I've been one of them. Pride keeps people going long after they're done. But I can tell you, once that pride goes away, once that ego goes away, once your pridefulness goes away, getting it back is an absolute bitch. That's why it is so hard for someone who's homeless, who's let their toenails and their fingernails and their teeth and their hygiene go, to come back to clean toenails, clean teeth, hygiene that's upbeat, body smell that's good, clothing that is fresh and clean. I meet so many people over the years that say to me again and again, you got to let him hit rock bottom. Fuck you. You got to let her hit rock bottom. Fuck you. I can tell you right now, folks, the moment you find yourself slipping, you put that life jacket on, metaphorically speaking. I don't care if you got to get to your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, your grandpa, your neighbor, your family member, you get to them. Because I can tell you right now, success is a set of stairs upward and failure is a set of stairs downward. And we don't realize, they wrote an article about me in the Oregonian in 1999 as the second fastest growing company in Oregon. With Oregon Business Journal wrote it and gave out the award. And the lady had this 3-part article and made the comment to me, when did you realize you were successful? Shit, Mark, I had no idea I was successful. I sat back in my fake leather chair. This is the first leather chair I've ever owned as an office chair. They've always been $99 Office Depot chairs. And I looked at her and I said, Shannon, I never really thought about it until now. Now, isn't it interesting that the following year, our business was down over 80%? And I had to bring in a consultant. And guess what I found? I've mentioned it before. I was busy spending my money I'd made and trying to figure out what I was going to buy, which requires you to read flyers and pamphlets and go to the stores, go to the automobile sales areas, go look at jet planes, these types of things. And sure enough, I was spending my time on buying things rather than spending my time running the company and marketing. So I turned it around that following year, and by God, we tripled our volume. You know, folks, the easiest million I ever made in my life was my first million. The hardest million I ever made in my life was my second million in a 1 year period. And it took me 3 years because the principles had completely disappeared. And I was over here applying those principles to a different area. We all have these principles. The question is, where are we applying? You know, I got guys right now, gals right now out there that would say to me, I spend my time in the good book. Okay. How much time? All the time, Brett. And what's that doing for you? What's that doing for you? I got a Grandma Bertha and a Grandma Alice. And I can tell you right now, they're both dead, and they both ate, drank, and drank the King James Version of the Bible. And they died penniless. But they were so full spiritually, it was unbelievable. So this can't all be about money. Hold on. Stop the presses, because it is. And you argue with me and say, no, it's not. Listen to me for a second and understand. This is not 1974. This is 2026. And I can tell you right now, a mediocre life costs you and I a minimum of 30,000 a year gross, 22, 23,000, 24,000 net, just to be alive, to be able to pay for a very minimal studio or 1-bedroom apartment, to be able to pay for a little bit of groceries, a little bit of, entertainment, a little bit of insurance. It is so expensive to be alive. It is unimaginable right now. And if you find yourself involved in an arena or an environment where you're not where you want to be financially, ask yourself if you are truly a breadwinner. And understand, not everybody was built to be a breadwinner. So then what you need to do is get around a breadwinner so that you are protected. And like any tribe or organization, you're going to add your value to that group. Maybe you're making 13,000. Notice I didn't say the words only 13,000. Maybe you're making 30,000 or 60,000. Notice I didn't say $1 million. The bottom line is we all add value. The misunderstanding here is, again and again and again, what I see with people is so many people are involved in an environment where they feel inadequate because they're basing it off of looking at others. And I can tell you, folks, make no mistake about it, you can't compare yourself to others. It took my little brother 25 years, 26 and a half years to realize that he was never going to be a breadwinner. But boy, is he one hell of a housekeeper. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. At least he knows. At least he knows where he stands in the world. So few of us are willing to admit as to who we are, what makes us beat. And so if you find yourself involved in an environment where no matter what you do, you can't get this to work, this platform, other platforms, ask yourself again and again and again, am I a breadwinner? Because understand, there are only so many breadwinners in a tribe. You've got to have your storytellers. You've got to have the people that prepare food. You've got to have the people that do the chores. You've got, and they add value to the tribe. Only a select few end up being the warriors in a tribe. Before this was the United States and the indigenous people lived here. Like I told Darius the other day, at my age, I would be a storyteller in that tribal environment. Darius would be someone who would probably be teaching the young warriors how to be a warrior, because even though Darius is very much in tremendous shape for his age, in his mid-40s, trust me, that's not who we send off to war, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, he, she, they. We send 17 and 18-year-olds. Well, you can go back and look at history. They were sending out 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. Understand, each one of us plays a role in society, in our own box. And how dare us think for one moment that we should all have our own box and that we should all be able to afford to pay for that own box. That's something that was thrown at us in the station wagon era, in the automobile industry in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and the nuclear family environment. Back in my day, the man was the breadwinner. But you go over to Mike Weaver's house, where Kay Weaver and Jim Weaver lived, and Kay was the breadwinner. And boy, my mom and dad hated her with a passion because she was a bra burner. That's what they called them back then. You older people remember when they called them bra burners?
Oh, yeah.
They had a word for it. And my folks were in on it, you know, and my mom's like, they drive a Volkswagen bus. They're hippies. Stay away from them, you know. But I was drawn to them, and I'll tell you why I was drawn to them was I was sick and tired of the way our family treated other people. And what I started to realize was that women add a ton of value to society. Duh. Black people add a ton of value to society. Duh. Chinese people, Japanese people, Asian people, Indian people add a ton to society. Jewish people, Muslim people, Catholics. But if you came from 5110 Southeast Aldaway, fuck no. All those people I just mentioned, all those religious choices I just mentioned, ethnicities I just mentioned, they added no value to society, to include women. So my mom was held down by a stigma that had been around for generations, that men were superior. Men were this, men were that. It's a man's world. You know, I can tell you this right now, folks. In the other room, just got me this cup of tea because she always makes me a cup when she makes herself a cup. I can tell you right now, make no mistake about it, I ain't got nothing on her. One day, and it's happening right before my very eyes, I'm watching my wife go through this metamorphosis, And again, she thanks me. And again, I tell her, you get in front of that mirror and you thank yourself for having paid attention. Because you know what, folks? We are shooting the messenger now more than we've ever shot the messenger. And the true messengers are being neglected in our lives because there's so many messengers and so many messages being delivered that we are in sensory overload. We are. And to get back to the basics is an absolute bitch. So watch yourself going forward this week on what you choose to involve yourself in. And if you find yourself involved in something that is foreign to you, and at the end of the day, you say to yourself, you know what? I don't want to be part of this. That doesn't mean that you've quit. Something will fill in. Oftentimes we know that it's not until we open the door blindly and slam the door behind us and enter that deep, dark corridor that our life begins. Our life begins. So take some risk, take some chances, push yourself, endure, create endurance. Don't be afraid to be patient. If you feel this isn't for you, to look around at other options. But if you feel this is for you, then I recommend you go back to the basics and do it again. And again and again and again. And pretty soon, those 5-pound weights will become 10-pound weights. And those 10-pound weights will become 15-pound weights. And pretty soon, you're going to be able to endure more Craigslist or endure, hand addressing with your silver Sharpies, those black envelopes, because they're not fun to do. They're not fun to do, just like Craigslist, just like going door to door, just like going to banks or just like going to Chamber of Commerce meeting. But what is fun is the spoils of your labor. The spoils of your labor. So if the best you can do today is to help some old lady in the house or old man in the house with some groceries, take some time out and thank yourself. I am so sick and tired of us neglecting ourselves in the United States and thinking that if it didn't involve money, then it doesn't involve a win. There's so much value you can add to your life. And I can tell you right now, if you don't feel valuable, you can't get your marriage, your partnership, your relationship with this industry or some other industry to work. If you feel malnourished, if you feel empty, you can't get these other things to work for you. You can't. So loving kindness in each of your direction. I got to get into that other class. Stacy's in there now talking to them. She's got them on hold. So thank you everyone for joining me. Make it a great week. Listen to me. Don't have a great day or have a great week. Make it a great week. It's a project. Remember what I wrote down this morning is absolutely goofy. This is your life, Brett. It is an art project. What will it look like when you're done? That's important to me. It may not be important to you, but whatever is important to you, do not be afraid to write it down. Do not be afraid to stare at it and say to yourself, I'm going to go in that direction. Because it's that old proverb or saying that we see. Start on the way, according to Rumi. Start on the way, and the way will appear. Get in your vehicle, get on foot, get on public transit, get on the phone, and get going, and it will appear. I guarantee you it will appear. Love and kindness in all your direction. Have a great week. Be kind to one another, please. Now more than ever, in America especially, we've got to be more kind and understanding and caring. Have a little more empathy and sympathy for our own family and our own friends. It starts at the grassroots. Bye-bye now, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, Brett. Thanks, Brett.
Appreciate
Bye,
it.
Brett.
I love
Take
you
care.
guys.
Love
I
you
love
too.
you.
Love you
Have a
too.
great day. Bye, RJ. Bye, Ron.
Bye, take
Bye,
care.
Chuck. Bye, Mark. Bye, Teresa. Have a great day. Bye, Ricardo. Ricardo Montalban. Bye, Sonia. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Bye, Gabriel.